This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're doing another smackdown comparison between two hot Android ice cream sandwich tablets. That is, they're running Android OS 4.0, the latest, greatest operating system. We have the new Asus Transformer Pad TF300 here that just came out, and over here we have the Acer Iconia Tab A510, which also just came out. Both are Tegra 3 tablets, quad-core, plus one companion core with a 12-core GPU, GeForce GPU. And there's some minor differences in which version of the Tegra 3 CPU they use, but we'll get into that in detail. Obviously, these are both 10.1-inch tablets, and they both run at 1280 by 800 resolution. Now, right now, we've got some custom wallpaper set here, in case you're wondering where it came from. This actually came from the Sony Tablet S. It has some beautiful wallpapers, and we've got them running the same wallpaper, so you can see the difference in color temperature. The Asus is warmer, obviously. The Iconia is cooler. As to which you like better, well, that's up to you. I perceive a little more color saturation in the Iconia myself. I like that when I'm watching movies. And now we're going to switch wallpapers because as you can see, our Transformer Pad likes to pulse. It cycles at the same 60 cycle as our camera records, so we're going to switch to Asus's wallpaper, which is one of the few miracle wallpapers that actually doesn't pulse with our Canon HD camera. Alright, now we're back on the manufacturer's default wallpaper for each tablet, and you can see, comparatively speaking, the brightness is similar. The Iconia is a little bit brighter. Both of these guys are running at maximum brightness right now, but they're both reasonably bright displays. Sure, they're not as bright as the Prime with its 600 nit outdoor IPS Plus display, but when you're indoors, you don't really need that. So for those of you who are going to use a tablet indoors, don't worry about it. If you want to use a tablet outdoors, then look at the Transformer Prime. When it comes to performance, both of these tablets have the Tegra 3, as I mentioned. Now, the Iconia Tab A510 has the same CPU used in the Transformer Prime. That was the first Tegra 3 tablet ever, and the first ice cream sandwich tablet at that. So, as clock speeds are declared, it gets a little bit iffy because it depends on how many cores are running at any given time, but by declared clock speed from the manufacturers, this guy is 100 megahertz faster, and that's not such a huge difference, but there is a difference in the GPU clock speed. This is running on the T30S, this is running on the T30L, and the Asus Transformer Pad is running 200 megahertz slower on the GPU. In real-world performance, playing games, including Tegra THD games that are designed for the Tegra 3 CPU, they both run just fine, honestly. And the benchmarks are pretty close. The Iconia Tab A510 has a bit of an advantage, as you might guess, like 100 points in quadrant. GL benchmark tests are actually a little bit higher on the Iconia as well, but we're talking about, 5 frames difference, that kind of thing. And on Antutu, they're about the same, so not a huge difference there. So it's only for you guys who really want that cutting-edge, high-end spec that really care about what CPU model is in there. Should it make a difference? Both of these have a gig of RAM, DDR3 in the Asus, but it doesn't benchmark any faster in the memory test, so perhaps that's a wash. We don't know if it has to do with the operating system or motherboard architecture, something like that, but both have that gig of RAM. Both come with 32 gigs of storage. There's also a 16 gig storage option for the Asus Transformer Pad, which saves you only a whopping, $20, so just don't even bother going there. Honestly, to save $20, why would you want half the storage? Speaking of price, the Transformer Pad TF300, again, it's $399 for the 32 gig, $379 for the 16 gig, and the Acer Iconia Tab is $449. Now, both of these are seeing discounts on Amazon already of about $20, and this, we have a feeling Acer was trying to price it really right in between the Asus Transformer Pad TF300 and the Transformer Prime. The Transformer Prime is $499 for the 32 gig and $599, and we've already done the smackdown between the Iconia 510 and the Transformer Prime. You can check that out on YouTube if you haven't already. So $50 here, $50 there. Really, I say pick the best tablet, the one that you like, because that's, relatively speaking, a small percentage of the total price that you're going to spend on something that you perhaps will choose to live with for a year or 2 years, or maybe even more. On both of these, we have genuine plastic on the back, and, well, we're not going to complain anymore about that because they both have good Wi-Fi and GPS and Bluetooth reception, so plastic is very wireless friendly. Here we have a kind of swirled finish, where Asus was trying to make this look something like the Prime that has the metal swirl finish. This is embossed plastic. This is their blue option. It's supposed to be available in red and in white sometime in June. In terms of design, it's pretty much just like the Prime. If you've seen that in stores, it's a little thicker, it's a little bit heavier, but the design aesthetic is very similar. The Iconia Tab A510, it looks a lot like the Iconia Tab A200. It's got a nice soft touch back here, kind of stippled texture. We got the Acer logo with the Olympic rings because they're a sponsor of the 2012 Olympics, and it feels very nice in hand. It's not as thin quite, it's 0.43 inches, so we're talking, 0.38 versus 0.43, not a huge difference, but a little bit thicker. But again, that gets you that huge battery in here that we'll talk about in a bit. If we look at the side view of both of these tablets, you can see typical kind of Acer design aesthetic. They like to put that strip over here. It doesn't do anything to make it look any thinner, but it looks kind of stylish and it gives you a flat edge to grip it by, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. And now we've got them one on top of each other, and you can see that Asus has reduced the taper versus the Prime, which is a good thing. We'll get into that in a minute, and we did cover that in the video review, but it makes it look thinner because it gets thinner at the, well, thinnest edge. And from the top view there. Now the controls on the Asus are greatly improved from the Transformer Prime, but they could do a little bit better here. We're still talking something that tapers down to a narrow edge here, and these are not the easiest to operate. They've also, because they reduced the taper here, you get a little bit better of a connection here for things like your HDMI and for the charging syncing port on the bottom, but we still do have some taper, and I'd like to see a little bit more support here. This is very thin, this is very iffy. Does snap in nice and firmly, and that's a good thing. And then here we have our micro SD card slot, which as you can see I'm tapping on pretty hard, and no, it doesn't shoot out like it does on the Prime. But still, for those of you who are prone to losing your cards, you might like a door on top of that, but this is fairly secure. Power button up top, right here, very small, but not too hard to operate. It's easier than it is on the Prime. Again, I don't know why they don't make it kind of easier to get to. I think they're going for the aesthetics a bit here over the practicality of the design, but it's a nice enough looking design. Now the Iconia Tab A510, while it might not win any gorgeous design awards here, it's really designed for ergonomics and easy use, and that's something that I've come to value after using, 20 of these tablets in the past year or so. The one that's actually easier to operate and hold kind of wins the day for me. You've got your micro HDMI port right here, nice, flat, flush, well supported, nothing's going to happen there. And under this door we have the micro SD card slot, and if it had 3G or 4G, which this particular one doesn't, the SIM card slot would be there too, so well protected. Only annoying for those of you who hate, well, fiddly doors. I suppose you could rip it off if you really hated it. Micro USB port combined with charging port right there. Again, well supported, sturdy. Nice, big, easy to operate power button, but it doesn't stick out so much that you accidentally hit it when you're picking it up. Orientation lock control, always nice to have, and here's your volume rocker. Again, nice stippled ends so you can feel what you're doing. Ergonomically, this one wins. Aesthetically speaking, honestly, neither of them is beautiful to my eye. And while we're looking at design, this is actually going to tie into our audio. Right here are your stereo speakers on the Iconia Tab A510. Pretty good size, obviously as far apart as you can put them on this tablet. Good stereo separation, really loud, nice and full. As a tablet goes, this has really very nice audio. It wins in that respect. On the Asus Transformer Pad TF300, well, maybe this is the price we pay for that kind of thin design that they're going for here, because we have a very odd stereo speaker placement. Asus says that they have two speakers in here, but they're small speakers that are directly side by side, so you get the idea there. You're going to have absolutely zero stereo separation. Volume, however, is pretty good. And while we're speaking of audio, the Acer Iconia Tab has Dolby Mobile 5.1 audio out. They both can do 5.1 audio out. We've tested them both with a HDMI AV receiver, and in fact it works. They can both actually really output 5.1 audio, which is good, and both of them have an advantage over the Asus ePad Transformer Prime, which should be able to do that, but well, a lot of the time you get stereo, mono, or some interesting mix of audio channels when you're trying for 5.1. And in terms of Wi-Fi performance, well, they both work. That's exciting after having a Transformer Prime. You can see we're running Wi-Fi analyzer right here, and at the moment the Asus is actually getting a bit stronger signal by about 5 dB. Now, throughout the office and throughout my home, I can tell you that they've been generally speaking neck and neck pretty similar. So some of this depends on actual location, where we are relative to access points and that kind of thing, but certainly you don't have anything to worry about with the Asus. Wi-Fi now does work. On both of these we had similar throughput. We actually got slightly higher throughput with the Iconia Tab. We have 25 megabit down and up FiOS service here, and We got a little over that actually on the Iconia tab, up to 25 feet away from our access point, and we got right at that or just a little bit below on the Asus. Again, both solid, they both work. How about GPS performance? We're going to run the same GPS test application called GPS Test on both of these to see how they do. And we're within about 5 feet of a window, so we should be able to get a GPS fix on both of these guys. So as you can see, they're both doing very well. They both got a fix very quickly here. The Asus is the one that's closer to the window, but we're only talking a foot difference there. Obviously, either one of these is going to work just fine. We're indoors at the moment, for goodness sake, so outdoors they work even better. One thing to keep in mind with either of these tablets, though, is they don't have 3G or 4G. So you're either going to need to use your smartphone with a mobile hotspot feature, a MiFi, or preload map data before you go on a trip with these guys. In terms of doing things like playing 1080p MPEG-4 video, they both can do it, no problem. They both have that micro HDMI out port, so you can plug this into your TV or your monitor, whatever you want to play that. Again, they do both output 5.1 audio, and both are very capable of playing 3D games. We've tested several games, and you can see us playing those games in our individual video reviews of these, and they're both, again, equally as competent for playing demanding 3D games. These are some of the fastest tablets out there right now, certainly the fastest among Android tablets, along with the Asus ePad Transformer Prime. When it comes to USB host functionality, both of them have it. With the Iconia tab, you actually get the USB host cable in the box, so that's a little adapter, goes in the micro HDMI port, and has a normal USB socket at the end, so you can plug in your keyboard, your mouse, your hard drive, your flash drive, that kind of thing. And with the Asus, you either have to buy Asus's dongle, which runs under $20, it's a USB host adapter that plugs into the bottom port on it, or you can use the keyboard dock to get USB host. One thing I will say is I think that Acer has done a nicer job with supporting those file systems more throughout the OS. Now, both of these will mount any photos and videos and stuff like that that you have in your gallery application from a micro SD card. Both of those obviously have that too, or from USB flash drives and hard drives, even an NTFS hard drive. But pervasively on the Acer, if you load any third-party file manager, your USB hard drive is going to show up there, and likewise with your flash drive. And with the Asus, we have to stick to Asus's own basic file manager that they include to actually access the content on there using a file manager kind of interface. One little bit of special sauce that Asus adds in is you get a limited set of USB drivers with Android. Again, the keyboard, the mice, the flash drives, game controllers, hard drives, those work, CD-ROM drives even, but you don't get wireless dongle adapter if you have, say, USB 4G adapter, and you don't get wired Ethernet. But Asus actually includes their own driver, just like on the Prime for that. So you can plug in a USB Ethernet adapter into this, as long as you have either the USB host dongle adapter or that keyboard dock, which has a full-size USB port on it. In terms of battery life, well, the Acer Iconia tab wins. It has a 9800 milliamp battery that's 36 watt per hour versus 22 watt per hour in the Asus. So a lot more battery power in here, that's why it's a little bit thicker. And on average, we've been getting at least 2 hours more runtime out of the Acer. Now, they both have pretty good battery life. We've been getting about close to 8 hours on the TF300. So we've been getting 10 to 11 hours actually on the Acers. So if stamina makes a difference to you, well, the Acer is a good shot. Now, one thing I will mention, of course, and this is the whole transformer aspect for the Asus product, we've been doing a tablet-to-tablet comparison. For those of you who just want to use these as a tablet. For those of you who are interested in that transformer aspect, that convertible to a netbook kind of design, we have the old keyboard dock here that works with the Asus Transformer TF300 and turns it into a notebook, netbook kind of form factor thing. Tablet goes right in here, and you can close it like a clamshell, just like a regular notebook. And this has an auxiliary battery that charges the battery inside of the Asus. So that increases your runtime. So you're looking at about 10 hours on average if you're using this with the Asus tablet. Now with either of these guys, as I mentioned, you can use USB keyboards, you can use Bluetooth keyboards, and there's a lot of nice Bluetooth keyboards on the market, mobile design ones. In fact, my favorite is actually the one Motorola makes for their Zoom tablets and Zyborgs, but it works with any Android tablet, no problem, or phone for that matter. In terms of camera, the Asus Transformer Pad TF300 has a 1.2 megapixel camera. The Acer Iconia Tab has a 1 megapixel camera. They do about the same. They both have pretty decent microphones for picking up your voice. They both work with Skype. On the back on the Acer Iconia Tab A510, you have a 5 megapixel camera that can shoot 1080p video. And on the Asus Transformer Pad TF300, you have an 8 megapixel camera, not unlike the camera that's used in the Transformer Prime, but there's no flash on either of these. By sheer pixel count, the Asus Transformer Pad wins. Honestly, I haven't gotten really stunning photos or video out of the Transformer Prime, the Transformer TF300, or the Iconia Tab A510. There are many tablet cameras out there that are just, okay. So I'm not going to say it's a huge selling point for the Asus, but, well, you do get more megapixels there. Now, in terms of cutting edgeness, if there's such a word, Asus has been great with that in terms of releasing OS updates right away after they're available from Google. So for those of you who really like to be on the latest release of Android at all times, Asus so far has shown an edge. Acer has not been too fast with those OS upgrades to new versions. On both of these guys, that's free, by the way, you don't have to pay for it. In terms of product reliability, now I've had the original Transformer, that was my main Android tablet, the Transformer Prime, and now we've got the TF300 here. And I've had several of the Acer tablets as well. Now, Acer doesn't have as many firmware fixes for things, but so far, honestly, they haven't had many things to fix. They're pretty much just reliable and they work out of the box. And Asus has been, shall we say, a little bit cutting edge on that. With the original Transformer, there was the problem with the keyboard dock that discharged if you left them plugged in together. Now, that turned out to be a design philosophy issue. And Asus had to redesign that keyboard dock so you could actually have it shut off and power down and not drain itself. And then with the Prime, we know there were problems with the GPS, with the Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. So they had lots of little firmwares coming out to try to address some of these problems, as not always very successfully. So to say that they come out with a lot more little tweaks and fixes, well, that's because they needed to. So we're not going to give them extra brownie points for that one. So that's the Acer Iconia Tab A510 Android tablet versus the Asus Transformer Pad TF300. Both are available now. The Acer is $449 list price. The Asus is $399. Both have 32 gigs of storage for that price and a Tegra 3 CPU. A little bit different Tegra CPU in the two, but like I said, so far for performance, we're not looking at a huge difference there. Either way you go, you're going to get a nice tablet here, to be honest. So it's not an easy smackdown to really declare a full winner on. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Don't forget to watch our video review of both of these products and subscribe to our YouTube channel.